The impossible DTCTIO and Station Commander Riloff had monitored the void for 40 cycles without incident. The monitoring station hung at the very edge of explored space, where the Sovereign Collective's territory ended and the unknown began. It was a quiet post, a retirement assignment for officers who had served their time in more exciting places. Riloff liked it that way. He had seen enough action in the border wars to last 3 lifetimes. The console beeped once, then twice. Then it erupted into a cascade of alerts that made Riloff's 3 hearts skip simultaneously. His clawed hands flew across the controls, trying to understand what his sensors were telling him. The readings made no sense. There was something out there, something that should not exist. Riloff ran the diagnostic sequence 3 times. Each time, the system confirmed what he refused to believe. A contact. A vessel. Moving at 0.98 light speed. Nothing in the known galaxy could move that fast. The Collective's fastest scout ships, built with technology accumulated over 50,000 years, could barely manage 0.5 light speed, and that was for short bursts that risked tearing the ships apart. But speed was only the beginning of the impossibility. The vessel had no power signature. Every ship in the galaxy, from tiny shuttles to massive dreadnoughts, left traces that sensors could detect. Engine emissions, heat dissipation, electromagnetic fields, quantum wake patterns. Every civilization's technology had a fingerprint. This vessel had nothing. It moved through space like a ghost, leaving no trace that it existed except for the mass readings that said something was definitely there. Riloff opened the emergency channel. His voice remained steady, despite the fear creeping through his body. Station 47 to Collective Command. Priority Alpha. I have detected an unidentified vessel entering our space. Requesting immediate response. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Communications Officer Venn, a young male who looked irritated at the interruption. Station 47. This channel is for genuine emergencies. If you have a sensor malfunction, all systems functioning normally, Riloff interrupted. I have run 3 separate diagnostics. The contact is real. It is traveling at near light speed with no identifiable signature and is not responding to hails. Venn's expression shifted from irritation to something approaching concern. Transmit your sensor data immediately. Riloff sent the information and waited. He watched the contact on his screen. It had not changed course. It had not slowed. It was heading directly into collective space on a perfectly straight trajectory, as if it knew exactly where it was going. 15 minutes later, his console lit up again. This time, the face on the screen belonged to Admiral Kess herself, the commander of the 3rd Defense Fleet. She was a veteran of 6 wars, with scarred scales and eyes that had seen things most beings only had nightmares about. Station 47, she said, her voice carrying the weight of command. 2 other monitoring stations have now confirmed your contact. We are tracking it across our entire sensor network. It is real. What is it? Riloff asked. We do not know. Keep monitoring. Report any changes immediately. And Commander? She paused. Good work. The channel closed. Riloff turned back to his screens and began the most detailed recording of his career. Whatever this was, it was historic. Within 3 hours, the situation had escalated beyond anything the Sovereign Collective had experienced in recorded history. Fleet Admiral Kess stood in the command center of the Orbital Defense Station above Sovereign Prime, the capital world of the Collective. Around her, dozens of officers worked at their stations, tracking the mysterious vessel as it moved deeper into their territory. Status report, Kess demanded. The contact is maintaining constant velocity, her tactical officer reported. 0.98 light speed, no deviation. Current trajectory will bring it to Sovereign Prime in 9 standard days. Have we identified the vessel's origin? No, Admiral. We have cross-referenced every known civilization in our database. Nothing matches. The propulsion system is unlike anything in our records. Kess studied the holographic display showing the vessel's path. The Sovereign Collective had existed for 50,000 years. In that time, they had cataloged every spacefaring species within 100,000 light years. They had traded with hundreds of civilizations, absorbed dozens into their collective, and fought wars with those who refused to cooperate. They knew the galaxy. Or so they had believed. What about the communication attempts? Kess asked. No response on any frequency, Admiral. We have broadcast in every known language, using every communication protocol in our database. If there is anyone aboard that vessel, they are not talking to us. Or they cannot, Kess said quietly. Or they choose not to. In the council chamber deep within Sovereign Prime, the ruling members of the collective gathered for an emergency session. The chamber was ancient, its walls carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow. Around the circular table sat representatives from 20 core species, each one a master of their respective field. High Chancellor Vorn called the session to order. His species had founded the collective 50 millennia ago, and his family had led it for most of that time. We face an unprecedented situation, he began. An unknown vessel approaches our space. It moves at impossible speeds. It responds to no communication, and it heads directly toward our capital world. It must be a weapon, insisted General Thrak, the military representative. An attack is imminent. We should destroy it before it gets closer. We cannot destroy what we do not understand, countered Science Director Miller. This could be first contact with a civilization more advanced than our own. If we fire first, we may start a war we cannot win. More advanced? General Thrak's scales bristled. Impossible. The collective is the most advanced civilization in this sector. We have been spacefaring for 50,000 years. What could possibly be more advanced? Clearly something is, Miller replied calmly. That vessel's technology exceeds our understanding. Its propulsion system breaks our current understanding of physics. If they are hostile and we attack, we may be destroyed. If they are peaceful and we attack, we become the aggressors. Then what do you propose? High Chancellor Vorn asked. Admiral Kess stepped forward. I propose we intercept them before they reach our core worlds. Not to attack, but to establish visual contact. We position our fleet at their projected course and try to communicate one more time. If they are hostile, my ships will hold them off while we evacuate Sovereign Prime. If they are peaceful, we make first contact away from our most populated world. The Council debated for hours. Finally, High Chancellor Vorn made his decision. Admiral Kess will mobilize her fleet. Intercept the vessel, but do not fire unless fired upon. If this is first contact, the Sovereign Collective will not be remembered as the aggressor. Admiral Kess returned to her command center and began issuing orders. The 3rd Defense Fleet consisted of 200 warships, from massive carriers to fast-attack corvettes. Within hours, they were launching from orbital docks across the system. It was the largest fleet mobilization in peacetime in over 1,000 years. Station. Commander Riloth watched the fleet gather on his long-range sensors. The military might of the Sovereign Collective was impressive. But as he looked at the mysterious contact on his other screen, still moving at its impossible speed, still leaving no trace except its mass, he could not shake a feeling of dread. What if their weapons did not work? What if their shields could not stop whatever weapons that vessel might carry? The unknown vessel continued its journey. It did not slow. It did not communicate. It simply moved forward with mechanical precision, like an arrow flying toward its target. Behind it, the greatest fleet in known space scrambled to intercept. And ahead of it, on Sovereign Prime, billions of beings looked to the sky and wondered what was coming. In the archives beneath the capital city, xenoanthropologist Dr. Selen worked frantically through old records. If this was first contact with an unknown species, there had to be some reference in the collective's vast historical database. The Sovereign Collective had been exploring space for 50,000 years. They had discovered hundreds of civilizations. Surely there was some clue about who this could be. She found something in a sealed archive, records that were 50,000 years old, from the very beginning of the collective's expansion into space. References to species that had been spacefaring before the collective existed. Most of those species were extinct now. Their civilizations fall into war, plague, or natural disaster. But one file caught her attention. It was marked as Sol System. The file detailed a species called humans. They had been discovered by an early collective scout ship exploring distant stars. The scouts had observed from afar, noting that the humans showed promise. They had reached their moon, were developing space stations, and showed the kind of technological progression that suggested they would be spacefaring within a few centuries. But then disaster had struck. The file reported that the Sol System star had gone supernova unexpectedly. No survivors were found. The entire human species was presumed extinct. That had been 500 years ago. Dr. Selen stared at the file. 500 years. Could it be? She checked the trajectory of the unknown vessel. Then she checked the last known location of the Sol System. Her scales went cold. The trajectory matched. The vessel was coming from the exact direction where Earth had been. She grabbed her communication device and called Admiral Kess directly. Admiral, I may know who they are. The Arrivederci Admiral Kess stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Adamant, as her fleet assumed formation at the calculated intercept point. 200 warships spread across a massive sphere of space, waiting. Every sensor was focused on the approaching contact. Every weapon was charged, but not locked. Every crew member was at battle stations. Contact will arrive in our visual range in 30 seconds. Her tactical officer announced. Kess felt the tension on the bridge. She had fought in 6 wars, faced impossible odds, lost friends to enemy fire. But she had never felt uncertainty like this. Every enemy she had faced before had been known, understood, predictable. This was different. 20 seconds. She thought about Dr. Selen's theory. The xenoanthropologist believed the vessel might be from Earth, from the humans who were supposed to be extinct. But if they were extinct, who was flying that ship? And if they had somehow survived their son's death, what kind of technology had they developed in 500 years? The collective had taken 50,000 years to reach their current level. What could a desperate species accomplish in a fraction of that time? 10 seconds. All ships report ready, Admiral, her communications officer said. Hold position. Do not fire unless I give the order. 5 seconds. Visual contact in 3, 2, 1. The view screen flickered, and suddenly there it was. The mysterious vessel appeared on their screens, and the entire bridge fell silent. It was like nothing any of them had ever seen. The ship was sleek, where their vessels were bulky. It was smooth where theirs were angular. It seemed to flow rather than fly, its shape suggesting movement even while it was still. The hull was dark, almost black, but covered in markings that glowed with a faint blue light. Symbols, writing, a language none of them recognized. That is beautiful, someone whispered. Then the impossible happened. The vessel began to slow down. Not gradually, as any normal ship would decelerate. It simply slowed, violating every law of inertia and momentum that the collective science was built upon. From .98 light speed to complete stop in less than 5 seconds. Any crew inside should have been crushed to paste by the forces involved. But the ship simply hung there in space, apparently undamaged. "Admiral," her tactical officer said, his voice shaking, "that should not be possible." "I know," Kess replied. She opened the fleet-wide channel. "All ships hold position. Do not approach. Do not power weapons." "We wait." They waited. The mysterious ship hung in space, silent and still. It was smaller than Kess had expected, perhaps a quarter the size of her flagship. But size meant nothing if the technology inside was as advanced as it appeared. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission," her communications officer suddenly announced. "Put it through." Static filled the bridge. Then a sound like nothing they had ever heard. It was rhythmic, patterned, clearly artificial. A language, but not like any language in the collective's database. "Can we translate it?" "The computer is working on it, Admiral. It will take time." They waited while the transmission played on repeat. The voice speaking was strange, neither high nor low, carrying tones that suggested emotion, but in ways they could not quite interpret. After 2 hours, the computer began producing partial translations. After 4 hours, they had something coherent. The translation appeared on Kess's screen. She read it once, then again. Then she felt her scales go numb. "This is the colony ship Perseverance from Earth. We seek peaceful contact with any spacefaring civilizations. We mean no harm. We are refugees seeking a new home. Please respond. Colony ship Earth. Refugees. The humans were not extinct. They had survived. And somehow they had found a way to cross the galaxy. Respond to them," Kess ordered. "Tell them we receive their message. Tell them they are welcome. Tell them." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Tell them the sovereign collective greets them in peace." Another hour passed before the response came. This time, the translation was faster. The computer was learning their language. "Thank you for your welcome. We request permission to tell our story." "Granted," Kess replied. "We wish to hear it." What followed was a tale that would change everything the collective thought they knew about survival, determination, and the human spirit. The humans called themselves Perseverance, and their story was one of impossible odds overcome by sheer will. 500 years ago, their scientists had detected anomalies in their sun. They had only months of warning before it would go supernova. Not enough time to evacuate billions. Not enough time to build a fleet. Not enough time to save their world. But humans did not accept extinction quietly. In those final months, they launched the most ambitious project in their history. Using every resource on their planet, they built one ship. Just one. But it was like no ship anyone had ever designed. It used experimental technology that their scientists had never fully tested. Quantum field manipulation. Zero-point energy extraction. Technologies that were theoretical at best, suicidal at worst. Asterisk. They filled the ship with 10,000 volunteers in cryogenic suspension. They loaded it with genetic samples, data archives, and everything they needed to preserve their species' knowledge. They programmed it with the coordinates of the nearest star systems that might host habitable worlds. And they launched it mere hours before their sun exploded. The ship, Perseverance, had been traveling for 500 years. For most of that time, it flew on autopilot while its passengers slept in frozen suspension. Its experimental engines worked beyond all expectations, accelerating it to speeds that should have been impossible. Its eye systems guided it through the void, avoiding hazards, adjusting course, keeping its precious cargo alive. 3 months ago, the crew had woken up. They found themselves in unfamiliar space, far from Earth, with no idea if any of their people had survived anywhere else. Their sensors had detected the Sovereign Collective's monitoring stations. They had continued forward, hoping to make contact but unsure how they would be received. "We did not mean to frighten you," the human representative said through the translation system. "We did not know how to announce ourselves. Our communication systems are very different from what we are detecting from your fleet. We are refugees, not invaders. We seek only a chance to rebuild what we lost." Admiral Kess felt something she had not experienced in her long career. Wonder. Pure wonder at the resilience of this species. They had faced the extinction of their entire civilization, the destruction of their home world, and 500 years of lonely travel through the void. And they had survived. Not through military might or technological superiority, but through determination and the refusal to give up. "How many of you are aboard?" Kess asked. 10,000 in cryogenic suspension. 1,500 are now awake and operating the ship. We can wake the others when we find a suitable world. Why did you not respond to our communications earlier? We received them, but we could not decode them quickly enough. Your languages are very different from ours. We needed time to build translation matrices. We apologize for any alarm we caused. Dr. Sellen arrived on the bridge during the conversation. She had brought the old files about Earth, about the humans as they had been 500 years ago. She compared those records to what she was seeing now. The differences were staggering. In 500 years, his species had advanced from primitive space stations to technology that the collective could barely understand. What would they have become if they had another 500 years? Another 1,000? Given resources and safety, what heights could humans reach? High Chancellor Vorn joined the conversation via long-range communication. He had been listening from Sovereign Prime. "Perseverance, this is High Chancellor Vorn of the Sovereign Collective. On behalf of all member species, I formally welcome you to our space. You have survived what should have destroyed you. You have crossed impossible distances. You have achieved what we believed could not be done. Your determination honors all spacefaring species." "Thank you, Chancellor," the human representative replied. "We hoped we might find friends out here in the darkness. We are grateful that hope was not misplaced." "We have much to discuss," Vorn continued. "You will need supplies, rest, and eventually a world to call home. The collective has many worlds suitable for colonization. But first, tell me, how did you achieve such impossible speeds? How does your ship function without any detectable power signature?" There was a pause. Then the human representative responded with words that would echo through the collective for generations to come. "We achieved it through necessity. When survival is at stake, Chancellor, humans find ways to do the impossible. We would be happy to share our knowledge with you, as friends share with friends. But first, may we ask a question in return?" "Of course," Vorn said. "Do you have coffee? We ran out 200 years ago, and we have been dreaming about it ever since." Laughter erupted across the fleet. It was a sound of relief, of joy, of the tension breaking like a dam. These mysterious beings, who had terrified them with their impossible technology, were, in the end, just people. Refugees who had survived the unsurvivable. Explorers who had crossed the uncrossable. Humans who, despite everything, still dreamed about coffee. Admiral Kess smiled for the first time in days. "Perseverance. This is Admiral Kess. I can personally guarantee that Sovereign Prime has the finest coffee production facilities in this sector. You will have all you can drink." "Then, Admiral," the human replied, "we accept your hospitality, and we look forward to beginning a beautiful friendship." The Perseverance began to move, escorted by the collective's fleet toward Sovereign Prime. Behind them, the station monitors updated their reports. The unknown contact was no longer unknown. The impossible vessel was no longer impossible. It was simply human. And that, Station Commander Riloth thought as he watched the procession on his sensors, was perhaps the most amazing thing of all. The sovereign collective had existed for 50,000 years. They had seen civilizations rise and fall. They had accumulated vast knowledge and technology. But they had never seen anything quite like humans. A species that refused to die quietly. A species that turned desperation into innovation. A species that crossed the galaxy not through conquest, but through sheer determination to survive. In the days that followed, as the Perseverance docked its sovereign prime, and its crew stepped out to meet their new neighbors, the collective learned many things. They learned about Earth's final days. They learned about the experimental technologies that humans had developed in their desperate race against time. They learned about the 500 years of travel through the void. But most importantly, they learned what it meant to be human. To face impossible odds and refuse to surrender. To lose everything and still find hope. To be alone in the darkness and still believe in the possibility of light. The sovereign collective had thought they knew the galaxy. They had thought they had cataloged all its wonders. They were wrong. The universe had one more surprise to show them. It was called humanity, and it would change everything. Asterisk.